For a mid-trap raise, we're focusing on the midsection of your traps, funnily enough. Now your traps, if you don't know exactly how they work, they start at the top here, coming up into your neck, and they form a sort of a diamond shape in your upper back, coming down to about just above the midpoint on your back. So they kind of fan out and fan back in again. Now, what you find is that a lot of people, the sort of fanning out happens here. So this bit here, on anybody who's incredibly developed as a bodybuilder, or usually rugby players and things like that as well, tend to have very pronounced upper traps. That in itself can usually cause issues with shoulder rounding forward. It sort of seems counterintuitive because it's a muscle at the back, and therefore you normally think training the muscles at the back are going to help you improve your posture and maybe more stable at the back. But the truth is that if you just develop this area here, it starts to pull you up, and then you start to get more into this internally rotated, forward hunched kind of a look, and it's not very good for your posture. However, it's very good for your neck strength, so if you are a rugby player, it's quite a good area to develop, but not in isolation. There are other parts. So that's your upper traps. Then you've got your mid traps and your lower traps. It's really just one big muscle, so trying to divide it up in that way is not exactly right, but because the fibers sort of change direction, then you sort of have to attack from different angles in order to hit the fibers that are being missed. So if you just do shrugs all the time, then all you're doing is contracting the fibers that go in that direction that allow your shoulders to elevate, whereas all the ones in the middle that cause your shoulders to pull backwards are pretty much getting missed. So this exercise hits the midsection where it starts to come back down again, and it's more the muscles that are pulling you back in this direction, not backing down so much. That would more be your lower traps. There's another exercise for that. But this section is more just your general posture and your stability. And it's also the section of your body that when you go to do bench presses and stuff like that, this area along with your rhomboids, which sort of sit underneath in that point, are very useful in stabilizing your posture as you press away. But it's also very good for things like heavy squats and deadlifts and that kind of thing, because you're trying to hold your posture when you've got heavy weights that's pulling you in the other direction, which would normally pull your shoulders forward. This is how you can keep your posture the whole time. So strengthening this area is incredibly important. The problem is it's very small. It's a very small area you're trying to hit. So you can't attack this with big weights. It has to be small weights, but small weights with a bit of leverage, which is what we're going to do. Now this exercise looks an awful lot like a subscapular retraction. They're very similar. You are doing a very similar thing, but what you're trying to do is focus your brain into a slightly different area. When you're trying to do a subscapular retraction, what you're trying to do is get your scapula or your shoulder blade to contract back. You're trying to engage your lats, the big muscles in your back, by retracting your scapula back and slightly down the way in order to engage the lats. In this one, obviously, we're looking at a different area, which is your traps, which is more central. And what you're trying to do here is pull everything towards the middle, as if you're trying to squeeze something right in the middle of your shoulder blades, right between the two of them. You're trying to squeeze everything in to that one point. So because you're doing a bit more force with a bit more muscle moving in that direction, then you ideally want to have a little bit of weight in this. Trying to do this just body weight, it's possible, but it's not going to be as effective. Adding a little bit of weight is probably going to be useful. It doesn't have to be a lot though. You're talking about maybe 1 kilo, 1.5 kilos. I've done it with 2.5 extended out from my fingers. I've also done it with 3, and I found that was maybe just a tiny bit beyond controlling it, and I was now starting to sort of force the weight. So round about the sort of 1 to 2 kilos as a starting point is probably quite good. And as with all of these things, again, if you're using something that's got length to it, you can hold it deep in your hand, or you can hold it extended out of your hand to create a little more leverage, so you can create more resistance without adding more weight. So you just hold the thing slightly further out in your fingertips, and it just extends more out from your body. But the actual exercise itself, you just lie down on the floor, arms straight out to the side, and then As with the subscapular retraction, you're trying to pull your shoulder blades together, but in this case, you're also trying to pull your elbows back and together and try and pull that midsection as tight as you possibly can. Lift your arms up into the air, hold there for at least 2 seconds. If you can't hold it for 2 seconds, you didn't do it with the muscle, you probably just threw your arm up into the air. So hold it there and squeeze for 2 seconds, control the weight back down, and as soon as you touch the floor, squeeze straight back in again. Try and find that point in your midsection of your back, get your brain connected to it, squeeze, control, squeeze, control. I'll show you what I mean. Now, there's 2 things that you might find when you're doing this exercise. One of them is that if you start to feel pressure on your lower back, then the chances are, again, you're just chucking yourself up. But that also shows that probably what you need to do is work on your core strength, because you're basically not stabilizing yourself on the ground with your core muscles, and you're trying to arch your back into it to hold you in position. So working on your deep core muscles at the abdomen and also your glutes to try and create that strengthening effect in the midsection starts to become more important. The other thing is that when you're at the top, you're probably going to start to feel like you don't really feel anything on the first 2, maybe 3 reps, and it's going to take till about the 4th, 5th or 6th rep before you start to really notice it if you've not done this before. Stick with it. Don't do 3 reps and then think, oh, this isn't doing anything, and just give up. Give it a shot. Try and take yourself up to 12, 15 reps. If you can get to 15 and you're still not feeling anything, then either the weight's too light or you're just not connecting with the muscle properly, in which case slow it down a little bit and really try and focus at the point of contraction on really squeezing into your upper back muscles. And if you still can't do it, it's something that's worth working on, because it means that your mind muscle connection in that area is poor, and that's not a good thing. It's quite hard to connect with muscles that you can't see when they're at the back. That's a bit more difficult, but with a bit of practice you can always get there. So really take your time and try and work on it, and even during the day just trying to work on squeezing those muscles together, just to try and make sure you can feel it. It's going to benefit you in the long run. So give it a go. See how you got on, and if it's not working for you, come back, let me know what's going on when you're doing it, and we'll discuss it and take it forward from there.